Don't move yet, because what you are about to hear is not just advice, it is a warning that could protect you from a situation already forming around you in silence. Many people fail not because they are careless, but because they move too quickly when they should have paused. And right now, in 2026, the patterns are becoming more dangerous, more hidden, and more convincing than ever before. If you ignore this message, you may walk straight into something you never saw coming. Stay with this message until the end, because what you think is a normal situation in your life may actually be a carefully set trap disguised as opportunity, conversation, or even help. The reason you must listen carefully is simple. Most traps do not look like traps. They look like timing. They look like urgency. They look like people telling you, decide now, or don't overthink it. But real wisdom never rushes you. It gives you space. It gives you clarity. It gives you time to see what others are trying to hide. Don't move yet, because the moment you react without thinking, you give control to something you cannot see fully. And that is how people lose opportunities, relationships, trust, and sometimes even years of progress. A trap does not always come with danger signs. Sometimes it comes with comfort, sweet words, and perfect timing that feels too good to question. You better mind your own business, not in fear, but in awareness. Not everything that enters your attention is meant to enter your life. Some conversations are distractions. Some offers are tests. Some people appear only to shift your direction away from where you are truly supposed to go. And if you are not careful, you will spend energy solving problems that were never yours to begin with. The most dangerous moment is not when something goes wrong. It is when everything looks right, but your instincts are being ignored. That is when people fall into traps without even realizing it. They trust too quickly. They respond too fast. They assume good intentions without verification. And by the time truth appears, the damage is already done. This message is here to slow you down before life forces you to stop, because sometimes the biggest protection you have is not action, it is patience, it is observation, it is the ability to say not yet when everything around you is pushing you to move immediately. So stay alert, stay grounded, and stay careful, because what is coming next in your life may not announce itself as danger, but the wrong step at the wrong time could change everything you thought was secure. And that is why you must understand this clearly before you take your next move. Not every opportunity is for you, and not every path is safe just because it is open. The warning, "Don't move yet, a trap is laid for you," is not just a dramatic phrase. It reflects a deeper truth about how situations unfold in real life, especially when timing, pressure, and hidden intentions are involved. Many people step into difficulties not because they lacked intelligence, but because they acted too quickly without fully understanding what was in front of them. A trap does not always look dangerous at first glance. In fact, its effectiveness depends on appearing normal, even beneficial. It may come disguised as an opportunity, a helpful suggestion, a sudden offer, or even a situation that seems urgent and unavoidable. This is why the first instinct should not always be action, but awareness. In 2026, where information spreads faster than reflection, people are often pushed into decisions before they have time to think deeply. The pressure to respond immediately can create blind spots. When someone says, "Act now, don't delay," or "This is your only chance," it becomes even more important to pause, because urgency is one of the most common tools used to influence decisions. When the mind is rushed, it becomes easier to overlook details, ignore inconsistencies, and accept things without proper evaluation. That is exactly where traps are most effective. A carefully laid trap often works by guiding attention in a specific direction while hiding other important facts. It narrows focus so that a person sees only what they are being shown, not what is being concealed. This is why stepping back mentally is so important. Distance creates clarity, silence creates observation, and patience creates understanding. When you stop reacting immediately and start observing carefully, patterns begin to appear. Small contradictions become noticeable. Pressure becomes suspicious, and intentions become easier to question. The warning is not meant to create fear, but awareness. It encourages you to slow down before committing to anything that feels rushed or unclear, because once you move without understanding the full picture, it becomes difficult to reverse the consequences. Many situations that could have been avoided were not failures of intelligence, but failures of timing and patience. That is why the ability to pause, observe, and think clearly before acting is one of the strongest protections a person can have in any uncertain situation that requires careful judgment. Invisible traps are not built with obvious warning signs or loud announcements. They are constructed quietly through patterns that appear ordinary on the surface. A simple conversation, a friendly suggestion, a sudden opportunity, or a seemingly harmless decision can slowly become the entry point into a situation that was carefully designed without your awareness. Most people believe danger always looks dangerous, but in reality, the most effective traps are the ones that feel normal enough to trust. That is why understanding how invisible traps are set through everyday decisions is essential for protecting your judgment and your future. Every day, people make dozens of small choices without thinking deeply about them. They respond to messages quickly, agree to requests out of politeness, accept advice from familiar voices, or follow directions simply because they appear convenient. Individually, these decisions seem insignificant, but collectively, they shape the direction of a person's life. This is where invisible traps begin to form, not in one dramatic moment, but in repeated small steps that gradually lead someone away from clarity and toward confusion. One of the most common ways these traps are set is through urgency disguised as importance. When something is presented as time-sensitive, people often feel pressured to respond immediately. This pressure reduces careful thinking and increases emotional reaction. In that state, it becomes easier to accept incomplete information, overlook inconsistencies, or ignore subtle warning signs. The trap does not force you to move, it simply encourages you to move before you are ready. Another method is familiarity. When something feels familiar, whether it is a person, an idea, or a situation, it creates a sense of comfort. That comfort can lower natural caution. People assume that because something feels known, it must also be safe. But familiarity does not guarantee safety. It only reduces suspicion, which is exactly what makes it useful in creating hidden risks that go unnoticed until it is too late. Invisible traps also rely on distraction. When attention is divided or overwhelmed, critical details are often missed. A person focused on one appealing aspect may fail to notice another important factor hidden in the background. This narrowing of attention is subtle but powerful because it shifts focus away from full understanding and toward selective perception. Ultimately, these traps succeed not because people lack intelligence, but because they underestimate the importance of slowing down. Every decision carries weight, even the small ones, and when those small decisions are made without awareness, they can quietly shape outcomes in ways that only become clear much later when the path has already been set in a direction that is difficult to reverse. One of the most overlooked reasons people fall into difficult situations is not deception alone, but the speed at which they place trust and make decisions. In a world where communication is instant and opportunities appear to move quickly, many individuals feel pressured to respond without taking enough time to evaluate what is truly being presented. This creates a dangerous environment where trust is given too easily and judgment is applied too late. The cost of mindless trust and quick reactions is often not visible in the moment, but its consequences unfold slowly over time. Trust is a powerful force, and when used wisely, it builds strong relationships, opportunities, and progress. However, when trust is given without verification, it becomes a vulnerability. People often assume that good intentions are obvious, but intention is rarely visible at first glance. It is revealed through consistency, behavior under pressure, and alignment between words and actions. When these factors are not observed carefully, trust becomes based on assumption rather than evidence. That is where mistakes begin to form. Quick reactions, on the other hand, are often driven by emotion rather than understanding. Urgency, excitement, fear, or even curiosity can push a person to act before fully processing the situation. In those moments, the mind focuses on immediate resolution instead of long-term consequences. This is exactly why many traps succeed, not because they are complex, but because they are presented in a way that encourages fast decisions without reflection. When people move too quickly, they often miss inconsistencies that would have been obvious with a little more time. The real danger lies in combining both elements, trust without verification and action without reflection. When these two occur together, judgment becomes weakened. A person may believe they are making a positive or necessary decision, while in reality, they are stepping into a situation they do not fully understand. Once the outcome becomes clear, it is often too late to undo the initial choice. This is why patience becomes a form of protection. Taking time to observe, question, and understand does not mean hesitation, it means awareness. It allows space for truth to reveal itself naturally rather than forcing conclusions too early. Careful observation builds clarity, and clarity builds stronger decisions. The more a person learns to slow down their reactions and strengthen their evaluation process, the less likely they are to fall into situations shaped by manipulation, misunderstanding, or incomplete information. Because wisdom is not measured by how fast a person responds, but by how accurately they understand what they are responding to before the decision is made. Silence and observation are often misunderstood in a world that values quick responses and constant activity. Many people believe that taking action immediately is always better than waiting, and that staying quiet means missing opportunities. However, in situations where intentions are unclear and outcomes are uncertain, silence and observation can become powerful tools of protection. They create space for understanding, allowing a person to see beyond surface-level appearances and recognize what is actually happening beneath the surface. When a situation is developing, speaking too quickly or reacting too soon can reveal more than intended. It can also limit the ability to fully understand what is unfolding. Silence, on the other hand, allows information to settle. It gives time for patterns to appear and for inconsistencies to become visible. Many truths are not revealed through words alone, but through behavior, timing, and repetition. When a person chooses to observe rather than immediately respond, they gain access to details that would otherwise be missed in the rush of interaction. Observation also sharpens awareness. Instead of being pulled into emotional reactions, a person who observes carefully begins to notice subtle changes in tone, attitude, and behavior. These small details often carry more meaning than direct statements. For example, a sudden change in communication style, an unexpected shift in urgency, or repeated emphasis on a particular outcome can signal that something deeper is happening beneath the surface. These signals are easy to overlook when attention is focused on reacting rather than understanding. Silence does not mean ignorance or weakness. It is a deliberate choice to gather more information before making a decision. In many cases, silence prevents unnecessary mistakes because it reduces the pressure to respond immediately. When people feel forced to react, they are more likely to rely on assumptions rather than facts. But when they allow themselves to remain silent and observant, they create an opportunity for clarity to develop naturally over time. Another important aspect of observation is emotional distance. When emotions are involved, judgment can become clouded. Silence helps maintain that distance, allowing decisions to be based on logic and awareness rather than impulse. It becomes easier to separate facts from feelings and reality from perception. This balance is essential when navigating situations where hidden intentions may exist. Ultimately, silence and observation are not passive behaviors. They are active forms of intelligence. They allow a person to gather insight, avoid unnecessary risks, and respond only when there is enough understanding to make a clear and informed decision. In a world filled with noise and pressure, the ability to remain calm, watch carefully, and think before reacting becomes one of the strongest protections a person can have against situations that are designed to confuse, rush, or mislead. Not every person who enters your life does so with the same purpose, and one of the most important skills you can develop is the ability to recognize people for who they truly are rather than who they appear to be at first. In many situations, appearances are carefully constructed to create trust, comfort, or influence. However, what a person shows initially is not always a reflection of their deeper intentions. This is why understanding how people around you may not be who they seem becomes essential for making wise decisions and avoiding unnecessary complications. At the beginning of any interaction, individuals often present their best version of themselves. They may appear helpful, confident, understanding, or even familiar. This initial impression can be powerful because it creates a sense of ease and connection. But impressions are not the full story. Over time, consistency becomes the true measure of character. The real nature of a person is revealed through repeated actions, responses under pressure, and behavior when there is nothing immediate to gain. These moments expose whether someone is acting with genuine intent or carefully shaping a false image. One of the most common ways people disguise their true intentions is through alignment with expectations. They say what others want to hear, agree when it benefits them, and adjust their behavior depending on the situation. This adaptability can sometimes be mistaken for understanding or compatibility, but in reality, it may simply be a strategy to gain trust quickly. When actions are driven by convenience rather than consistency, it becomes difficult to identify what is real and what is constructed. Another important factor to observe is emotional influence. Some individuals create strong emotional connections quickly in order to build dependence or trust. This can make it harder to question their actions or notice inconsistencies. When emotions become the primary foundation of trust, critical thinking can weaken, allowing hidden motives to go unnoticed. That is why it is important to balance emotional connection with rational observation. Time reveals what appearances conceal. As interactions continue, patterns begin to emerge. Small contradictions, shifting stories, or unexplained changes in behavior gradually expose the difference between appearance and reality. What once seemed clear may become questionable, and what seemed trustworthy may require deeper evaluation. These changes are not always immediate, but they are often consistent over time. Understanding that people may not always be who they seem does not mean assuming the worst about everyone. It means staying aware, observing carefully, and allowing actions to define trust rather than first impressions. By doing so, you protect yourself from being influenced by surface-level impressions and instead build your understanding on evidence, consistency, and time-tested behavior, which ultimately leads to clearer judgment and stronger decisions in situations where appearances alone are not enough to reveal the truth. Every significant turning point in life begins with a decision, and the most important truth about decisions is that they are rarely as simple as they first appear. The idea that a single choice can change everything is not an exaggeration. It reflects how deeply interconnected our actions are with future outcomes. What seems minor in the present moment can gradually expand into consequences that shape direction, opportunity, and experience over time. This is why understanding the weight of each choice is essential when navigating uncertain situations. At first, decisions often feel manageable because their immediate effects are visible and limited. However, the true impact of a choice is not always revealed right away. Some decisions open doors that lead to growth, while others quietly close possibilities that may not be noticed until much later. The challenge is that both positive and negative outcomes often begin in subtle ways, making it difficult to recognize the significance of a moment while it is happening. This is where awareness becomes crucial. Every decision also reflects priorities. It shows what a person values more: speed or understanding, comfort or growth, emotion or reason. When faced with uncertainty, many people tend to lean toward quick resolution because it reduces stress in the moment. However, decisions made under pressure often lack the depth needed to fully understand long-term consequences. That is why thoughtful consideration is so important. It allows space for reflection, comparison, and clarity before commitment is made. Another important aspect of decision-making is influence. External voices, whether from people, circumstances, or emotions, can shape the direction of a choice without being fully recognized. Sometimes these influences are helpful, providing insight and perspective. Other times they create confusion or urgency that clouds judgment. The ability to distinguish between helpful guidance and misleading pressure is one of the most valuable skills a person can develop. Over time, the accumulation of decisions forms the structure of a person's path. No single choice exists in isolation. Each one connects to the next, gradually building a pattern that defines direction and outcome. This is why reflection is important, even after a decision has been made. Understanding why a choice was made helps improve future judgment and reduces the likelihood of repeating avoidable mistakes. Ultimately, the power of a decision lies not only in the moment it is made, but in the future it creates. Awareness, patience, and clarity allow a person to make choices that align with their long-term well-being rather than temporary emotions. When decisions are made with understanding rather than impulse, they become tools for progress instead of sources of regret, shaping a future that is guided by wisdom rather than reaction and ensuring that each step forward contributes meaningfully to the life that unfolds ahead. As this message comes to an end, take a moment to reflect on everything that has been revealed. Not every danger in life announces itself loudly, and not every trap is designed to be obvious. Most of the situations that lead people into confusion, loss, or regret begin quietly through small decisions, subtle influences, and moments where awareness was replaced by urgency. That is why this entire message has focused on one central truth. Awareness is protection and patience is power. Throughout this speech, we explored how traps are often built through everyday decisions, how quick reactions and blind trust can weaken judgment, how silence and observation reveal what rushed actions cannot, how people may not always be who they seem, and how every single decision has the power to shape a future that cannot easily be undone. Each idea points back to the same principle. What you fail to notice in time can influence your life far more than what you actively confront. If there is one lesson to carry forward, it is this. Not everything requires immediate action. Some situations require distance, some require observation, and some require simply waiting until clarity arrives on its own. The strongest decisions are not made in moments of pressure, but in moments of understanding. When you slow down, you gain access to details others miss. When you observe carefully, you begin to see intentions more clearly. And when you refuse to be rushed, you protect yourself from choices you may later regret. Moving forward, remain mindful of how quickly situations develop around you. Pay attention to urgency, consistency, behavior, and emotional pressure. These are often the places where truth and deception separate. Trust should never be given blindly, and decisions should never be made without clarity. Every step you take deserves awareness, because every step leads somewhere meaningful. So, as you leave this message, carry this final reminder with you. Your future is not shaped by the traps you avoid alone, but by the awareness you bring into every decision you make. Stay calm when others rush. Stay observant when others react. Stay thoughtful when others are pressured into action. Because in the end, the people who move with awareness are the ones who walk past danger without even realizing how close they came to it, and continue forward with clarity, strength, and control over the direction of their own lives.